Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Digging Deeper, Make Creativity Your Business Advantage. I'm your host, Jason Falls. Today on the show, we're going to talk about influencer marketing, an influencer marketing book, but not mine, not the one I'm writing. Neal Schaffer is here to talk about his new book on influencer marketing. It's called The Age of Influence and is a great primer on the why, the who, and the how of influencer marketing. We're going to talk about his book, his thoughts on the influencer marketing world, and how he's seen creativity applied to influence marketing thinking in his research. Then I want to keep the topic going a bit and discuss a problem we all need to be aware of. The mainstream media frames influencer marketing very differently than I do, very differently than Neal does. And frankly, it's annoying. So I'm going to chat through that issue to keep us grounded on what influencer marketing is and what it isn't. Finally, I'd love to share some observations today about native advertising. Some clients and some friends have asked me recently about tools like Outbrain and Tabula, which often power those. You may also like articles found on big media websites. Do they drive traffic? Are they effective? I'll tell you my thoughts before we go today. But first, if you haven't been thrust into the world of live streaming and web video during the COVID-19 pandemic, my guess is you're falling behind your competitors. The work from home mandate has forced us all into Zooms and Slacks and go-to meetings and more, but it's also forced us to reinvent how we engage our customers, especially online. And many brands have realized a little video goes a long way, a little live video goes a lot further. So you want to look professional when you live stream. It's important to your brand. So you should be, frankly, using the live streaming and audio video production software we use for this show, Switcher Studio. All you need is that software and iOS devices on the same Wi-Fi network. No TV truck, no expensive production studio, no real editing either, because you can manage running your show like a TV producer, but you do it all from an iPad or an iPhone like this. So I've got my iPad here for this show. I got to be careful, I'll drop it. And so I turn it around and you can see I have this like director's grid of camera angles. There's Neal up there in the green room waiting to be on the show. He's waving at us. And so if I hit a little button, I can throw my name up and you can see me on the screen. It says Jason Falls Cornett. And so that all happens just because I touch that panel right there. And then I touch it again and it goes away. And then I can do this and this and this. And now you can see me and Neal on the screen together. So he'll be in here to talk in a minute. You'll see this view again. And then I hit another button and then I come back on the screen solo like that. You can do all this cool stuff with Switcher Studio and it makes your show, whatever you're doing, look professional. Go to switcherstudio.com/falls. Make sure you use that special URL, switcherstudio.com/falls. It should be here on your screen now. There you can start a free 2-week free trial. After that, you can use the code falls and get 10% off your subscription for as long as you have it. As long as you don't cancel, you get 10% off forevers. That's pretty awesome. So use the code falls and get that. Switcher Studio makes our live recordings of this very podcast look professional. Now let them do the same for your live streaming. switcherstudio.com/falls. If you are dialing into the broadcast live on LinkedIn, Facebook, or YouTube, you can jump in the comments section there and ask questions to interact with us here on the show. So do jump in the comments and say hello. I have this single platform that shows me the comments. And if you don't comment, I don't see that you're here. I don't see like, here's all the people watching like you do on a social network. I've got this one place that it happens, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And so if you comment though, I see you. And so Jocelyn Main says, "Que pasa?" from Boston. "Que pasa, Jocelyn? Welcome. Good morning. Buenos dias. I hope things are well in your world. Thank you for stopping by." So jump in the comments and say hello because I can see it. And if you have a question for Neal or me during the show, a comment you want to add to the conversation, I try to keep an eye over here to say what's going on. And so Jocelyn says he can't stay long. Just wanted to check in and support. Thumbs up. Thank you, Jocelyn. I appreciate your support there. Pam Stallings is tuning in from Louisville this morning. Hello, Pam. Welcome to the show. Glad to see you here as well. So if you are watching or listening to the show after the fact and would like to join us in the future, just follow me or Cornett on LinkedIn or Facebook, or look for Digging Deeper on YouTube. And you'll get that handy live notification when we stream. That's normally at 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific on Tuesday mornings. Look for me online at Jason Falls. I'm pretty much that everywhere. There's a politician in North Carolina who hates me because I own 5 pages of Google, but hey, I was here first. You can also typically find Cornett at Team Cornett, Team Cornett. A couple other people saying, Felix Cal says hello. Hi. He's been on the show before. Felix, good to talk to you. I think he's up in the Canadians. And Kathy Colliver, also from Louisville. Good morning, Kathy. Good to see you here. Amy Kent is here as well. Good morning, Amy. Good to see the Louisville contingent coming out to say hello. So check in if you're not from Louisville, so we know that we're broadcasting there too. Okay, it's time for me to shut up and bring the featured performer into the show. It's like I'm hosting a variety show here. So Neal Schaffer and I go back a while. We've known each other probably about 8 years or so. And he started out with a great book called Maximizing LinkedIn. And I read that book and figured out how to use LinkedIn better back in the day. And so I followed him on his great blog at nealschaffer.com for years. He also wrote a book called Maximizing Social Media. He's long been offering his helpful tips and insights on the interwebs and has been very useful to a lot of people out there. His fourth book is out now. It's called The Age of Influence. He beat me to the punch getting an influencer marketing book out there. But I'm torturing him this morning. He's in San Diego, and I'm making him get up at the butt crack of dawn to talk to me about it on the show. Neal, good morning. Thanks for getting up early with me.
Good morning, Jason. Yes, you are torturing me, but it's all good, my friend.
That's okay. Now, I guess you and I have been like-minded in a lot of ways for a long time, but what are the odds we'd both be writing a book about the same specific topic at the same time? Of course, you got a little head start on me. What led you to want to write this book? And then I'll compare it to my reasoning, and we'll start to show people how we're different there.
And before that, Jason, I have to say, I don't even know if you remember this because I was a nobody at the time, but I actually remember first meeting you at Blog World.
Oh, yeah.
Believe it or not, in the evenings at some strip mall in Las Vegas, and you were there holding this big glass of beer. And I'm like, I think you had a cowboy hat on too. I'm like, this dude is cool.
Yeah.
I cannot believe we're here today as well. So, yeah, like yourself, Jason, I mean, you do a lot of speaking. I do a lot of speaking. I also do a lot of consulting with clients, what have you. And I just found that starting 2 or 3 years ago, there were a lot of questions that I was getting, not just about influencer marketing, but also a lot of marketers that were saying, how do I also become an influencer? So as I did a little bit more research, I realized there was this huge gap between what everybody perceived influence marketing to be and what the reality and how powerful it can be for not just, now we talk about TikTokers, what have you, but really any company in any industry can leverage the concept. And marketers were being misled. They were getting it wrong. And I came to, it's amazing that there's another person in the world who feels the same way in you, Jason. I'm really excited to hear that because when I wrote the book, I'm like, are people really gonna, I thought that I remember reaching out to people in the industry, and the industry is very Instagram centric, as you can imagine, and getting like pushback, like, who are you? I was looking for case studies. I really wanted to interview players. And I realized, okay, this is going to be somewhat of a disruptive book, right? Because maybe some will not like what I have to say. But, it's been great getting your feedback and others since the book came out that says, wow, it's really, it really brings together. See, I always had this concept called leverage the other. And leverage the other was bringing together employee advocacy, brand advocacy, and influencer marketing into one concept. And I've been talking about it since 2013, 2014. I'll never forget. It was a conference, in like 2018 where I'm like, let's just blow up the word employee advocacy and let's just consider employees as influencers and let's just treat them the same as if they were influencers. It's the same, whether they're fans, they're employees, or influencers. We're collaborating with other people and we can do it in very creative ways if we allow ourselves to, and we can reap the benefits. And what's happened since then, Jason, is the social networks have only become more pay to play. Organic social media continues to die from a performance marketing aspect. Advertisements are still advertisements. Yep. And we still, trust and content creators who are influencers just keep creating greater and greater content. I'm like, any brand could have become a TikToker, could have become a YouTuber, could have become that lifestyle influencer. Brands, they can't do it, right? They're not people. It's not the same. They don't have they probably have the creativity in house, but they can't unleash it like influencers have free reign to do. So, and even with COVID-19, the trends are still driving this concept of influencer marketing even further. So yeah, I'm excited that your book's going to be coming out soon. I can't wait to read it and help pimp it as well. And I hope more people really open up because I see, if I was to look at the things you could do in digital marketing, I see influencer marketing as this huge untapped potential for businesses.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you there, of course. But so you talk about the why of influencer marketing in the first part of the book. I want to pose the question to you this way. If I'm a business owner who doesn't do much with digital or social, I've got a presence, and you start talking to me about influencers, I'm going to say, why would I invest in that? I don't think somebody holding my product while they appear to have a perfect life on Instagram is going to sell more stuff. How do you respond to that? Why should they think about influencer marketing?
Great question. So I like to use this analogy. Jason, I don't know if you know, but I speak Japanese and do business in Japan. And they're pretty far behind on social media. In fact, a lot of digital media, believe it or not, digital marketing. So when I had a chance to speak to a lot of small business owners there, and I gave the speech on influencer marketing there, a lot of light bulbs went off. And afterwards they thanked me. I'm like, how did your business get to be where it is today? And everybody says word of mouth, right? Without digital and social, it was basically word of mouth. And these are companies that aren't really doing a lot of organic social, but they immediately saw, I can just not do organic social and just work with influencers and get an even better, a better benefit of doing that. So I think that's really what it's about. That we are digital first today. At least consumers are. We have been for a while. Businesses with COVID-19 are finally realizing that. So if you need to be where your customers are, they're digital. And when we talk about digital, we talk search, social, email. Yep. So you probably have, hopefully you have a blog, you have content, right? You're showing up in search engines. Maybe you're doing pay-per-click. Hopefully you're doing email marketing and marketing automation. But the social side is the piece that most companies are, they're realizing it's become pay to play. They're doing a lot of advertising. And what I'm saying is, look, let's shift some of that budget. And I'm not talking about, an influencer is not a YouTuber or a TikToker or an Instagrammer. It could be a LinkedIner. It could be a Twitterer. It's someone that has a community on any given social network that they build a community around the topic of their expertise. So the topic might be fashion. It might also be, Slack bot API programming. I mean, I don't know, right? It's irrelevant of industry, really. It's a matter of, do they have a topic? Do they have a community? And at the heart of it, are they a content creator? So here's the powerful thing, Jason, that's really happened since I've written the book, is there's been a migration of companies that just see influencers as pure content amplifiers, but they see them as content creators that they are, and they're starting to bring influencers in-house as content creators. And that's where I love the introduction about the creativity aspect, in that at the end of the day, these people will probably make better content than you can, because that's all they do. And whether it is, and it's not just photos, it's not just stories, it's not just stupid TikTok videos, although my daughter loves them, and it's not just YouTubers, it's text, it's podcasts, it's any content medium out there. Mm-hmm. The other thing is that influencers might be more in tune with your customers than you are, because they've built the community, right? They speak to these people on a daily basis. They know a lot, and they know a lot of people. So instead of, one of the mistakes a lot of companies, and that person that you're referring to is probably saying, oh, I just send them a piece of content and I give them a paragraph and they're just going to publish it on, on social. And it's like, no, but a lot of companies try to treat influencers that way, but it's really when you give them the freedom to do what they do best. And when you tap into them for ideas, you begin to unleash just a lot of value from collaborating with them. So they become a lot more than just content creators. They become almost like a group of people that are well-tuned in social and with your audience that you can tap into for feedback, for product ideas. You run into a crisis, hopefully you have this group of influencers you've been working with that can come to your rescue in social media. So it goes a lot deeper than just that pure, oh, I'll send them this and they'll post it for me.
I love speaking of, I want us to dive into creativity a little bit, because obviously that's a theme that we talk about here on Digging Deeper, but I love your take on visual influence. So take me down that road, because I think a lot of people out there are hearing that term for the first time and don't quite understand what that is. It's certainly an angle to all this I haven't isolated and focused on. So this is really super useful for folks to consider. So you have a section in the book where you talk about visual influence. Tell us what that is and what influencers are doing it well.
Yeah, so, I talked about these various trends that are pushing influencer marketing to become more and more important. And one of them is visual social, because, Instagram is not new. I think it's been around since 2012 or 13. At that time, we saw Pinterest emerge. We saw Snapchat emerge later. Now we have TikTok. We've always had YouTube. But these are platforms that I believe businesses have really struggled at, right? How do you depict your brand, your product, your service visually? And it is especially impactful for B2B brands, as you can imagine. But even consumer brands, early on in my career, there was one pretty famous e-commerce company, and the social media team reached out to me. They goes, Neal, our boss says we need to use the creative assets from our advertising team. And these are the same people that are putting together visual ads. So he goes, Neal, our posts look like ads. They're not getting the engagement, right? And of course, and in fact, when you look on social media, on visual networks, you see that a lot of the content there look like ads. You scroll through your Instagram feed, it's almost like you can spot the ads. It's like, okay, this is not from a brand. This is from a brand. This is from a brand. And I've come to the conclusion in the book that brands just don't get it. They can't get it because when their approach to social media is so mired in their own product and in themselves. They, with blog content, maybe more and more of them, still few, are more audience centric, but in their visual content, they haven't been audience centric. But guess what? Influencers who are content creators, they're all audience centric. They're only posting content that they know people are going to engage with. It is a completely different paradigm that brands just have not been able to grasp. So that's why we've seen, especially on Snapchat at the beginning, that's why we've seen influencer takeovers. Can you imagine big brands letting people in their 20s or late teens take over their social media account? It's crazy, right? But it's happening, and we don't see as much of it now as we did before. But even there are some brands, and some, Disneyland is the one that I bring up in the book. Can you imagine Disneyland allowing others to take photos and publishing those photos as their own? Disneyland's Instagram feed from its onset is 100% user-generated content. They just cannot, compete with the creativity and the authenticity of its user base. And I think they were really smart to come to that conclusion. Why compete when you don't, with so much democratization of media out there? I mean, you never owned your brand because you can't own the perception, and it's even more so today. So why not embrace it? Why not embrace how others perceive of your brand? Why not celebrate the fans, celebrate those around you? If you want to incite word of mouth, celebrate the word of mouth you already have to incite it even more. And that's where I think working together, especially visually speaking, working together with influencers, that you're going to get your biggest bang for the time and money you invest.
Absolutely. Good take on that. Now, one of my favorite things to talk about are the technologies and tools that can help us do all this. Influencer tools range in features from simple database lookup tools to managed services where you say, I want to do an influencer campaign that does this, and they go build it for you, and you just write them a check. Give us a rundown of what's out there. What can businesses find to help them? And then maybe tell us some of your favorites. What are the ones that your clients are using?
Sure. I mean, if you take a step back, so with influencer marketing, there are agencies that will do it all for you. There's a lot of tools, but the tools are very Instagram centric. Mm-hmm. And this is the problem, is that the industry, majority of influencer marketing budgets have gone into Instagram. And in general, I think the, B2C marketing spend is more than B2B marketing spend as an aggregate. So that's part to blame. But if you take a step back, right, social listening tools can obviously get you a lot of data. Obviously, who's talking about you, and if you're able to map who's talking about you with who are your fans in social, with who are your customers, you begin to build this database of people that you map in social according to what I call the brand affinity model, which is start with people that already know, like, and trust you, rather than try to engage with celebrities that may never want to work with you. So those are tools. There's a really cool one for if you have a Shopify CMS for your website, and it's the only one I know of right now, called Caro, Caro. I think it's getcaro.com. And they will do exactly what I'm talking about. They will integrate your email marketing database with your shopping cart history, because it's in Shopify, with your Instagram followers. And in the dashboard, it will map out who are the influencers that are already a brand affinity for you. And it's a brilliant technology that's starting to get a lot of funding. It is free, or was free. Now they're going to be offering tools outside of Instagram, outside of Shopify. I do believe they're the leaders right now in doing this. And I see more and more brands realizing the value of doing that and are starting to create some of the programs. So I would, if you're on Shopify, that to me is a no-brainer. But even if you're not, I would definitely look out for them. But any social listening tool will get you will get you a lot of data there that you can use. Above and beyond that, we then get into what we would call blogger outreach tools. So yes, blogger outreach is a type of influencer marketing, right? And some of these blogger outreach tools, GroupHigh is an example of one of the oldest ones that have now evolved into, they've brought in an Instagram database. So we can use them both for bloggers, what have you. There's one that I really like, a newer tool for blogger outreach called Respona, Respona. And they're actually created by the folks at Visme. And Visme have a free infographic and graphic tool that they also have a paid version. And this is something they just released like December of last year. So it even includes things like hero monitoring, where you can automatically get alerts and pitch through the same tool. And I've had some good success with that tool. Along those lines, you have tools like Tracker that have been around, Clear. If you're into B2B influencer marketing, Analytica is a great tool that I highly recommend. And then when we get outside of that, we get into more of influencer discovery tools. These are very much, like I said, very Instagram centric. But one company that I've worked with that I think is doing great is a company called Open Influence. And in fact, my work with them influenced the last chapter of The Age of Influence because they were very early on at implementing artificial intelligence in their technology. Artificial intelligence to try to find fake followers, fake engagement, but also when people are engaging with a photo, what are the visual elements that they're engaging with? What is successful about that photo? How can we predict if a brand was to work with this influencer, with this visual, how well that campaign would perform? And they've been doing this for a few years now. So that's how far these influencer discovery, these clout-like databases of people work. And speaking of that, there's a company called Right Relevance, which I really like. It's the closest thing to clout. So I also teach at Rutgers Business School, and we'll do an exercise using rightrelevance.com to do a keyword, and it'll rank people according to their influence along that keyword. Very Twitter centric like Clout was, but it's a free tool that you can use. So there's a lot of influencer discovery tools out there. And then you get into influencer marketplaces. And if it's like, my boss wants me to launch an influencer campaign yesterday, I need to get something up, you can go to influencer marketplace. And there's a ton of them out there, right? And then, above and beyond that, you have the agencies, and then you have a lot of other tools. A tool like BuzzSumo, right? Could also help you find influencers. There's a new kit on the block called Spark Toro, which is created by Rand Fishkin from Moz, which is trying to do it. It's different, but you can use it in a similar way. Even something like Nimble, a social CRM, you can pull in social feeds, you can pull in Twitter lists, and you can quickly build an influencer pool from the work that others have done on Twitter. So there's a lot of ways you can piecemeal tools together, but hopefully that gives you an idea of the landscape. And that influencer discovery tool, we see now influencer agencies are now basically opening up their tool for others to use. These tools are feeding into each other's APIs. So I think there's going to be a shakeout in the industry at some point, but definitely Open Influence. There are some other companies out there, and in the book, and I also have a blog post I keep updated, in the book, I have an introduction of 10 tools per each one of these, functions or types that I'm talking about. But there's a lot of technology out there to help you.
That's true. And I tried to jot down a handful of them so that I can add them in the show notes. That won't be a comprehensive list, but we'll make sure that we link back to Neal's list on his blog. So that's good. Real quickly, checking in with the crowd over here. We've got a couple other people coming in. Niklesh Tiwari says, good morning, Jason and Neal. So good morning, Niklesh, to you. Manaz Falai says, hi, morning from Iran. So we're global. That's awesome. And so Kathy Colliver also commented very interesting on your comments there about visual influence. So COVID has really taken a toll on certain segments of influencers. Travel folks are hurting pretty bad. Foodie and restaurant types are having a hard time too. But then there are others who have shifted how they create content and what type of content they create to stay afloat. Do you see COVID having an effect on the marketplace here, or will it eventually be something that kind of settles back to some version of normal?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely had an impact, like you said, in those areas. I have a niece that works at one of these influencer marketing discovery tools companies, just by chance. And I know that a month ago they laid off 30% of their staff. So I can't say any company names, obviously. So it's definitely been hurting some players in the industry, but there are other players that actually have seen an increase in business. And I think if you look at this very holistically, there's a lot of marketing budget that's waiting to be used.
Yeah.
So it's actually the conversation I had with Jay Baer recently, who said he believes that there's some unused marketing budgets, like for events, that are now being pushed into working with influencers, and it's done virtually. But especially when you think about these types of podcasts or all these virtual live streams we see almost every day on Facebook, or webinars across a wide variety of topics, brands are realizing even today that they can still work with influencers and tap into them to help make sure that that they're relevant in social media. So yes, I think temporarily it's hurt some industries, but I think that virtually, if you can't meet your customer physically, how do you meet them digitally? I think it's actually opened up opportunities and a lot of eyes. And the long-term aspect, like I said, long-term trends, I don't think are going to change anything. But yeah, it's made brands work with influencers in different ways, and the smart influencers have pivoted, as you said, and they're finding new mediums, new ways to work together virtually, like companies are doing now. So I think that those aspects are going to continue because without a vaccine, this is going to continue for I don't know how long. So that's my take on it, at least.
That's true. The thing that always that I think is going to be an interesting balancing act or balancing outcome here is the rub on influencer marketing is, at least from the mainstream perspective, which I'll talk about in a second when you're off the show. I want to rant on that a little bit. But the rub on influencers was always they're superficial. They don't actually deliver value. They can't motivate their audiences to do things, all that kind of stuff. Those are the types of influencers that are going to not survive this, because the ones who can create content that really understand the brands they work with and their audiences and how to push the right buttons to motivate them to do things, those are the ones that the brands are going to keep paying, because they're the ones who are actually delivering value. So I think we may see a layer of that sort of superficial, not really effective influencer kind of go away, because brands are A, wising up to it, and B, they really have to be creative about how they change their content creation and their model in order to be able to sort of survive situations.
That's a great point, Jason. We've seen that, especially not just influencers, but at the celebrity level.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen celebrities who, would never do, live stream, would never show up without makeup, without being in the studio, showing up at their home, regular clothes, no makeup. And yes, you're absolutely right. It's definitely a portion of influencers that were all about that idealistic lifestyle looking, influencer. And yeah, it does not look real. I mean, it never was real, but people could aspire to that. Right. But now it just looks extremely artificial in today's day and age. And those influencers that have pivoted to the real are the ones that succeed. Those that relied on that look and feel because they were friends or maybe married to or had a boy or girlfriend who was a really good photographer, videographer, where they could pull off that look, right? And had a chance to go traveling around the world to Bali and get some cool photos, or Hawaii. They can't do that. So you're absolutely right. I do think that there will be a shakedown, and those people will have to change, or the budgets are going to go away for that, because we can't travel, and people don't want that right now. People are hurting. They're losing their jobs. They have loved ones that might be sick or what have you. So it's definitely a different reality that influencers have to pivot.
Yeah. All right. Real quickly, I want to ask you your favorite influencer marketing case studies, whether you wrote about them in your book or not, doesn't matter. Just when you think of the best influencer marketing case study, and let's break it down, maybe B2B and B2C. So give me two. What are your favorite influencer marketing case studies that you've learned about in your research and whatnot?
Well, my favorite B2C is actually something not in the book. It's something that I presented on Social Media Marketing World. So relatively new case study. It's from a watch company. So this is B2C, called Rosefeld, who I believe have headquarters in Amsterdam and New York City. And they basically created the type of program that I preach about in the book, which is, and I don't know if they're actually using that Caro tool, but in a similar way, they wanted to create a program that would be inclusive to everybody who loved the brand. So it's open, and they went through their followers, their customers, their email database, reached out to people that already knew, love, and trusted the brand. And they created 3 different tiers of membership in this community that they created. Obviously, you could think of some that have more influence than others, became more of the content amplifiers. Some that maybe didn't have as big of a following, but had the creative skills, became more of content co-creators. And then others who were very social became recruiters of new people into the community. And they've seen, I don't know the exact numbers, but in all these influencer marketing case studies, the numbers are pretty impressive. But, obviously shifting their budget, they've seen much greater ROI. They've seen higher conversion on sales pages and shopping carts. What a lot of smart companies now are doing are leveraging influencer content, not just for their organic content, but for their paid ads, where they perform better, but also on their website where they're helping companies and products convert at a higher rate as well. So this is one that I like to share. It's still early on in the program, but they already have some impressive results. On the B2B side, wow, there's a lot of different ones. The Roundup blog post is something that in the B2B side we've seen. If we're in social media, we see it like every other day, right?
Yep.
But there's some great case studies that it's still effective in building backlinks, building traffic, getting email signups. There's one in the book from Aref's bestexpertroundups.com, a guy that's in Romania. That's all he does is these expert roundups. And they just got amazing results. In the book, I also talk about Adobe Summit. Events are really powerful for working with influencers in B2B. And now they can be done virtually as well. And just, the number of impressions of tweets that went out from influencers that were invited to attend Adobe Summit was worth millions of dollars in advertising money for the cost of probably just, airfare and hotel. Yeah. So these are just some of the numbers. I remember talking to the CEO of Open Influence about influencer marketing ROI. And he goes, Neal, it's not about, you're going to generate ROI. The question is how much, because when you collaborate with people that have influence, assuming you chose the right ones, you're going to get something out of it. It's really what do you want to get out of it and how are you going to measure it?
Exactly. The book here is The Age of Influence. I think that's it right in the screen there, Neal Schaffer. It's from HarperCollins Leadership and Amicom. Neal, where can people find the book online and where can people find you online?
Well, the book is everywhere fine books are sold, as we like to say. There's an audio version, ebook. So wherever you are in the world, Amazon is the no-brainer. So go there. I am Neal Schaffer. I am the real Neal. That's Neal. There's a few Schaffers out there. So it's Schaffer. Don't screw up that last name spelling, please. So it's Neal Schaffer on social media, nealschaffer.com. I also have a podcast, and I wore my Ask Me About My Podfest t-shirt here. And it is called the Maximize Your Social Influence with Neal Schaffer podcast. So if you're interested in this perspective on influence in digital and social media and how it can help grow your business through innovative marketing, I hope you'll check out the podcast. And we'll have to have you on there, Jason.
Well, I'll be glad to be on it. And let's get it closer to my book so it makes more sense to people then. But yeah, all those links that he just talked about, I jumped over into the comments section. I'll make sure that they're in the show notes on the show as well. Neal, thank you so much for getting up so early with us. Love the book. Hope people go out and buy it. And appreciate you spending time with us today, man.
Thank you, Jason. It's an honor to be here. And I look forward to your book as well.
All right. That is Neal Schaffer, ladies and gentlemen, the author of the book, The Age of Influence. Had a good time reading this book. And what was really awesome about it for me was that it's very practical, tactical usage. He does a really good job of sort of explaining things. He always does a good job of explaining things and breaks it down in a way that businesses of any size can really translate and use. But I, of course, selfishly, as I'm reading this book, I was really thrilled that he went some areas that I did not go in mine, and I went some areas that he didn't go. So I think they're going to be real good companion pieces with each other. But I highly recommend the book. It looks like this. If you see it at the Barnes and Nobles or the Books of Millions or the wherever, The Age of Influence, probably in the business marketing section, go get that book. Okay, so I want to continue the conversation a bit about influencer marketing today. We have a problem. The mainstream media seldom talks about influencer marketing without skimming over it as if the Kardashians are the only influencers out there. Last week, the New York Post ran a gem of a story written by Molly Borman-Haymont. The piece uses the big controversy around Kylie Jenner and Forbes to try and prove influencer marketing isn't effective. Forbes issued a retraction of Jenner's placement on its most recent list of billionaires, saying upon further review she was only worth about $900 million. Haymont is the author of the new book, The Instagram Iceberg, says in the piece, I'm going to quote here, as the curtain is pulled back, the Insta economy is revealed to be flimsy at best. The influencer business model centers around the idea that followers translate to sales. Now that Jenner's sales figures have been exposed, we see this as blatantly not the case. Though Jenner has gained millions of Instagram followers year after year, these increases have not led to additional revenue from her spinoff lines. End quote. Here's the problem. Haymont is basing the success of an entire industry of online content creators on the single, perhaps most notable example of someone commonly referred to as an influencer. She doesn't take into account the fact that Jenner is not really an influencer. She's a celebrity. She banks on her name and aspirational lifestyle that her family's fortunes created for her. She didn't earn those hundreds of millions of followers by creating great content and establishing her own brand like the 99.9% of other people classified as influencers did. The writer also seems to imply that the difference between $1 billion and $900 million is the dividing line between success and failure. Sure, she does point out that Jenner allegedly lied about her company's sales and doctored her tax returns. Haymont's pinnacle example of online influencer certainly isn't all she's cracked up to be. For context, though, Molly Borman Haymont is a successful entrepreneur who, like Jenner, comes from money. So perhaps $900 million or even $100 million is failure to her. The piece also includes this amazing paragraph, quote, to put it into perspective, civilian influencers, aka non-celebrities, trail so far behind Jenner's 179 million fans, it's a wonder they are even able to compete, as the standard of excellence and high-quality content expectations for all those promoting on Instagram is the same, celebrity or not. I've got news for Haymont. You are out of touch. Jenner's content isn't something most people would qualify as excellent or high quality. It's just professionally photographed and includes someone who is on a successful reality TV show. Try looking at some civilian influencer content now and then, and you can get a grip on a world beyond 100 million follower counts on Instagram. And brace yourself for this revelation, Molly. There's more than one social network. Yeah, really. The New York Post piece offered up by Haymont is another shining example of how the superficial celebrity version of influencers is all the mainstream media thinks exists. It's shitty advice for 99.9% of all businesses because it's based on less than 1% of all influencer marketing examples. Are there issues with influencer marketing? Is the industry perhaps inflated in some way? Sure, in parts. But if you think Kylie Jenner is the benchmark, you're out of touch with consumers, brands, and the industry just as much as she is. I'm sharing some links to my blog post on the matter, as well as a link to the New York Post article online in the messages here on the social networks. Sometimes they post, sometimes they don't. I'll definitely have it in the show notes. I'd love your thoughts on this topic. You can comment wherever you're seeing this post in the comments, or reach out to me on social media afterwards. I'm Jason Falls all over the place. What would you do to improve how the celebrity-only thinkers think about influencers? I would love to hear your thoughts on that. Stephen Moore says, got a go-to meeting. Hope this is recorded. Sent you a connect invite. Great info. Thank you, Stephen. It is recorded, and I'll make sure that you get a link to it after the show. So thank you for stopping in. I'd love to have anyone else jump in and comment and whatnot. I'll do my best to read those before we get off the air. If not, I'll definitely read them afterwards. Okay, final topic today. Let's talk for a second about native advertising. Now, I'm specifically talking about the paid article marketing you can do using tools like Outbrain and Tabula. You have content on your website that you want to drive traffic to. You can submit that article with ad creative for an image and a headline and teaser copy to these tools. You submit it to the tools, and your content will then be served up to readers of big media websites. It's those, you may also like this content posts that you see at the bottom of an article on Yahoo News or even ESPN or Esquire. Lots of big websites use these media platforms and bring in related content. It's not an ad, it's content, which is key to remember. So in a tool that's no more difficult to use than buying, a paid post on Facebook. In fact, I found Tabula to be even easier than Facebook or AdWords to use. You can set up native ads or promotional teaser ads if you want for your content. And they work. I tested Tabula for 1 day on a mediocre article on jasonfalls.com. My blog is niche marketing. It's even niche digital marketing. So compared to the big media sites out there, my traffic is minuscule. I put $100 in for 1 day. I drove almost 300 unique visitors. If I let that campaign go for a few more days to optimize, my rate would have gone down to 25 cents, 30 cents per visitor, which is a pretty good rate when you're talking about paid media trying to drive traffic. Of course, that would have cost me more money. And remember, this is different rates than pay-per-click. You can get much lower pay-per-click rates if you're doing just pay-per-click advertising. But this is putting your content on someone else's website as a teaser, say, come over to this other website and read this. A little bit more effective, a little bit different audience than a searcher, because these are people looking for articles to read. So you're going to pay a little bit more per visitor. I've also been working recently with a client that's driving literally thousands of site visits per week. The traffic is exposing their content to new audiences, some of which are sticking around and reading more, clicking through to the product page and the like. So here's what you need to know and consider when thinking about these types of content promotional tools. Number one, the people are seeing this content on news and information entertainment sites. You can't send them to your homepage or even a product page. You have to have content, articles, write-ups, blog posts, videos, something deep, informative, and engaging. They're in the middle of reading things. They're in the mode to read good news and information or be entertained. It's not a direct sales tool. It's a content sales tool. So you're not selling your product here. You're selling your content. Bring them there, and then you can do something cool. Second thing you need to remember, bounce rates are going to be high. They're not there on your website once they click through to see all of your content. They came for that one article. Don't be surprised if most of them leave. They hopefully got what they came for. A percentage will poke around and subscribe to your content or even shop. That's who you really care about in the short term. But those bouncers, the people that go away after reading the article, they might come back, and now they know who you are. So they're important too. But don't get frustrated if your bounce rate goes way up on those pages. It's supposed to, just by the nature of who's coming. Third and finally, do something to capture that visitor above the fold in the content. Whether it's a subscription box, an offer for a free something or other, or just startling content that makes them want to keep reading, you have to capture their attention to keep it. Make good use of that passive visitor who thought your headline was catchy and do something even more catchy to keep them there, or make them do something that will help benefit you in the long term. You can try it out for yourself if you have good content. Go to outbrain.com or tabula.com. Both have self-serve tools, even for small businesses. You can manage your budget just like you can with pay-per-click ads, etc. So give it a shot. Would love to see it. Daniel Walter says, content marketing, love it. Yes, that's why you're here. That's why I'm here. Thank you, Daniel. All right, next week on the show, the one and only Christopher Penn will be here. He knows more about analytics and measurement than most people alive combined. He's also one half of the Marketing Over Coffee podcast and the man behind Awaken Your Superhero. You won't find anyone smarter about marketing and analytics than this guy. So bring your notebooks, your pens, your papers, your note-taking devices. You're going to want to take them. Of course, we record everything, so you don't really have to do that, but you're going to learn something. So next Tuesday, June 23rd, live, 8 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Pacific on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, or later on that day in the podcast feed. To get the live stream, follow me or Cornette on Facebook or LinkedIn, or look for Digging Deeper on YouTube to see the stream. The URL to get to the YouTube page, if I could speak, is jason.online/digdeep. jason.online/digdeep. If you like your stuff on YouTube's, jason.online/digdeep, all one word, and subscribe. The recordings will, of course, be on those various social networks after the show is over. If you miss it, you can also subscribe to the audio podcast version, which hits the podcast feed a little later in the morning on Tuesdays after the live episode is done. Be sure to update your podcast feeds. If you listen on the audio podcast, some of you who've been listening for a while are subscribing to the Jason Falls Show podcast feed. It's still going to be there for a while, but not forever. We want you to transition over to the Digging Deeper feed, which is now at jason.online/digging deeper. If you go to that address, not Dig Deep, that's the YouTube. Jason.online/digging deeper, the whole name of the show, is where you can find links to Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and more. If you've been subscribing to the podcast for a while, you're probably listening on the old Jason Falls Show feed. You don't have to cancel that subscription, but you do need to add Digging Deeper. Eventually, it will not appear on the Jason Falls feed, and I'm going to do something with influencer marketing probably on that one. But I don't want you to miss a show once we stop simulcasting them on both feeds. So go do that. Jason.online/digging deeper. I think that's all we got today. That's a lot. We've learned a lot today, haven't we? That's kind of fun. I like learning a lot. I'm glad you're here to do that. That's fun. I don't know which buttons to push now. Everything's new. For a show that often screws up on user error, now I've got all sorts of options for user errors. But I think I'm ready to hit the button and get out of here. That'll do it for this edition of Digging Deeper. Make creativity your business advantage. If you like the episode, share it with a friend or colleague who might as well. If you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the show, email us at jason@teamcornet.com. Digging Deeper is a production of the Cornet Group. Find us online at teamcornet.com. Our executive producer is Kip Cornet. Creative director, Jason Majeski. Associate producers include John Herskin and Ashley Harris. Our theme music is composed by Rex Banner. I'm your host, Jason Falls. Thank you for joining us. Until next time, I'll see you on the interwebs.